shortly after my grandfather had passed away, and I saw that moment that came about to be a bit of an existential crisis for me to really understand mortality and make a plan for my future. I was with one of my backpacking buddies that I had hiked across the Grand Canyon with, and we'd been all over the Smoky Park with. We'd been everywhere, done a ton of stuff. And so just him and I, it was a winter camping trip, and we were both just jonesing to get outside. And this is pre-cell phone, pre-whatever. And we cooked this plan up. We're just going to go up for the weekend. We're going to hike up a mountain in Virginia, camp at the top, just get outside. Fun. It was forecast to snow 2 or 3 inches. We thought, perfect. We'll take the Frisbees, it'll be great. So we get up crazy early in the morning. We pop a cassette tape in because back in the days, no CDs, no whatever. So the radio's not on. We don't have any connection to the outside world. There's not any phone beeping at you telling you that there's a snowstorm of the century coming. So we were just la-di-da up the mountain in the truck. We had 4-wheel drive. We were going up the mountain, and my friend Dave turned to me and says, "This is the best idea you've had in a really long time," which is foreshadowing for how the rest of it all went downhill from there. So we got up to the parking spot and got our gear on, started heading up the mountain. It starts just to snow, and it's beautiful and gorgeous, and it's the Appalachian Trail. And if anybody knows the Appalachian Trail, the blazes that you follow on the trees are rectangles. They're about this big, and they're white. So that's how you tell. And different trails have different colors, and there's different ways for some of these real long trails that run all through the United States. So we're on the Appalachian Trail, and we're making it up, and then it really starts snowing. So we decide maybe it's not the best to camp at the very top because of the wind and everything else. So we stop a little bit short of the top. We set up our camp, put our tent up. We set up a tarp for the rest of our gear so we can, put our shoes and stuff out so it doesn't snow into them, and, left some of the stuff we didn't want to bring in the tent. And we get in, we cook dinner, we're having a blast. We get in the tent, and it's getting cold, and the snow is still coming, and we're both teeth chattering. And this is just a friend. This is not my boyfriend, but we were so cold. We were like, well, bring in that wilderness survival training. What's the thing you do? You get in the same sleeping bag together. So we zipped our bags together and squished down in there. And so we finally had enough warmth. We were dozing in and out, but you could see on the sides of the tent, the snow getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And we're like, what is going on? So first morning light comes. We're like, I think we better get out of here because it's just getting deep. And so we unzipped the front thing. It had snowed so much that it had collapsed our tarp outside. So all our gear, it was safe under there, but it was buried under all the snow. So we dig all our stuff out. We pack everything all up, and we start heading back down toward the mountain, down to the parking area. It was probably 6 miles, 7 miles, something like that. Maybe not quite that far, but, a decent amount of time. It was going to take us a while. It wasn't a short hike. And the wind is blowing. It's snowing like crazy. And snow is sticking to all the trees. And so white snow on a tree with white blazes, we pretty much lose the trail. It's really hard to find it. So, and the snow is knee deep at this point. So we ended up, thankfully you could see where you had walked in the snow, which is actually kind of a perk. So we would get to one where we could see the blaze, and I would stop, and he would go ahead and try to find the next one. And if he couldn't, he'd come back to me, and then we would try it again. And so then we get to the next one, and we made our way. We got down to the parking lot. It's up over the bumpers of the car at this time. It's 4-wheel drive, but it's still a little truck. And we didn't have a shovel. We just had this little stool, but it made a very good scoop. So we scooped a trail out to the road. We had seen a few cars still managing to get by on the main road, but we're soaking wet from sweating. I was literally under the truck clearing out snow. So we get in there, and we think we're home free. And it's just blowing so hard. We're having a hard time. The windshield wipers can't keep up, and it's frosting over. So I'm hanging out the window of the car. Go left, a little bit to the right, a little whatever. And it's whiteout storm. And so we're doing this, and we hit a giant snowdrift and get whooshed off the road into the ditch. So now we're soaking wet. We don't only have about a quarter tank of gas because we're 21 and we don't know what we're doing. We don't plan to head that great. It's super cold. It's just keeps snowing. And we're like, what are we going to do? So we scramble and change our clothes and get into our dry clothes, zip the bags back together. We make emergency, pot around ourselves as much as we could get in there. I took an orange plastic poncho and pinned it in the window of the car just in case, because it was white out, in case somebody else was coming, that they could at least see there was a car in the ditch. And on the off chance somebody else would be on this back mountain road, and it froze straight out. So this vinyl thing is just frozen out like this, and we're in the back. We're starting to get a little panicky because we're good 10 miles from anything either direction, and we don't even know which way would be the faster way to try to get to somebody, and was going to have to be on foot because there was no way we were getting the car out. So we decided to just hunker down, stay in there. We had food, we had water. We're like, they always say, don't abandon your gear, stick with it. So we went in there, we set his watch to beep every, I think, 15 minutes, so we made sure to keep moving around because we were starting to both go into hypothermia mindset where you kind of get a little confused and you can't quite tell, and it's better not to slip completely away, asleep. So we set his alarm, we made sure we talked to each other, see if the other person was making sense, and we'd wait. Like, did you hear something? We didn't hear anything. And so a lot of hours went by, and we were getting pretty panicked. I mean, I felt like I couldn't even swallow anymore. I was so scared that my mouth had just dried out. I couldn't swallow fluid. It was panic time. It was like, it's up to the windows of the car at this point. You're like, it's going to be days before they come up here and dig our popsicle bodies out of this car, because I don't know how we're going to survive this. And at 20, whatever, how old I was, 20, I guess I graduated college, 22 years old, 23 years old max. And you're thinking, this might be it. This is the end of our life. This is this moment. You're like, and it's your fault. You went on this thing to try to have a good time, and you've done this thing that turned out to be so dangerous. And after this, it's starting to, dusk is setting in. We're thinking it's going to turn dark, and all of a sudden we hear, like, do you hear a motor? We're like, maybe it's a truck to clean, a clutch to clean the road. And we're like, but man, it was so deep and it was so whatever. And then it doesn't get any closer to us. The sound just stays a certain distance. So it's a motor, and we can hear it. And then maybe 20 minutes later, on our orange poncho blaving out there, we hear on our glass window, we hear knocking. And there's a dude out stuck in the ditch. He hit the same snowbank we did. That slid into the ditch maybe 50 feet behind us. It was so white out we couldn't even see him back there. But he had a full tank of gas. His car was warm. And he was a policeman that had just got off duty. He lived on the mountain. He knew everything about what was going on up there. So, hooray, I can swallow again, So we pack up what we can. My gloves were soaked through, so I got out a pair of wool socks and put those over my hands, because that was, what I could do at the time. I took my gloves, some stuff we wanted to dry out, and we went back and got in his four-wheel drive and put all our stuff on the dashboard to try to dry out our clothes. And he's got a radio, a CB radio in his car, because he's a policeman. So he radios back and tells the office what our predicament is. And they were like, sorry, you're on your own. We can't get anybody up there. It's gotten so bad. All the emergency vehicles are taken. And even if we had one available, it's not going to make it up there. So he tells us his niece has a house, I think it was 6 miles away in the direction we'd originally been going. And the snow was going to be there 3, 4, or 5 days at this point. So this was our shot. So we packed up what we could carry in our bodies. I grabbed my ID and water bottles in my jacket pass-through pockets. I had a face gaiter for skiing, hats, gloves, all the stuff, and we head off, and it's getting dark. And the snow is over my waist at this point. So every step that we take, we have to do this for 6 miles through the snow, not knowing if we're going to make it. It's freezing cold. It's blowing literally sideways. The snow, it's snowing sideways. You can't see. The only thing that kind of saves you is you can kind of tell there was a road because of the break in the trees. And this 6 miles, that's not a short hike, especially when you're doing your legs like that and everything. And I was in the middle. The policeman was up front because he knew where we were going, and my friend Dave, that was just a year older than me, was behind. And we were in single file trying to use the tracks where we were going. And it got to the desperate point where the guy that was leading the way was like, I'm going to make it to my 40th birthday. gonna make it to my fort. He got his mantra going to keep alive. That's where we were in this. And I was in the middle, and Dave kept falling down, saying he wasn't gonna make it, getting back up, and this goes on for an immense amount of time. And then off in the distance, this tiny little light, his niece had left the light on for us. The police station called her and let her know we were going to try to make it. And so after how many hours of not knowing how long it was going to take, where we were going to go, I could finally see this little light, and it was something to focus on to get to that light. And I completely saw that it was this cute little craftsman house, adorable, a nice little front porch. We're going up there. So we get there, we get closer to the house, we get up to it where I can actually see it. Totally hallucinated the entire thing. It was a single wide trailer. No porch, nothing about it was what I saw in my head, but my brain made up something that I could shoot for to get there. And I was just emotionally, physically, bodily, everything was numb. And when I literally stepped over the threshold of that trailer, that one step, all the pain came back into my body in an instant. Like my brain held it back until it knew I wasn't going to die. And we got inside, and we were there for 3 days, and they ended up bringing a bulldozer up on the mountain to dig us out. And thankfully, because we were now friends with the policeman, he had them hook chains and pull both of our cars into the road out of the ditch for us. And so we had to call back home, have somebody drive up with a 4-wheel drive, come get us. And yeah, that was a scary